Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for coming over, and thanks for giving the opportunity to give you a first-hand review on this exciting company. What does Elephant Talk do? From the tip of the iceberg, we manage and secure the mobile cloud. We manage the mobile cloud on behalf of mobile operators. We basically brought the 40, 50 different platforms that an average mobile operator has in its back office back to a single platform. And most of that software is now company-owned, so we have been able to deeply embed all the software together into a single platform that manages all the key IT, back office, and core network elements that a mobile operator needs in its operation. And over the years, mobile operators have become kind of legacy operators. They are very complicated IT users and spread out over 30, 40, 50 different platforms that are organized as silos, delivered by vendors that usually retain the source code. It becomes more and more of a spaghetti that does not flexibly address the needs of a mobile operator nowadays. We turn that upside down by delivering a single platform that can be managed through a single web interface, thereby basically delivering all the capabilities that a mobile operator needs at a fraction of the cost with much more flexibility. And based upon the fact that the average revenue per user is going down due to regulatory and competition pressures, and at the same time the cost to deliver all the services, mostly due by the huge increase in data demand, at some moment the margins of a mobile operator gets more and more squeezed, and they need to rationalize their operations. And rationalizing their IT, core network, and back office systems is a big chunk in that whole picture, and that's what we deliver. Of course, only managing millions of devices, applications, subscribers, events, transactions in the cloud is only part of the picture. At the same time, you got to secure those as well, because otherwise what you win on the left, you lose on the right. So 4 years ago, we acquired a company called Velden. Velden, founded by Pat Carroll, who used to be co-responsible for the electronic trading platforms at Goldman Sachs, created a whole portfolio of intellectual property around using readily data in connected networks, processing that in real time, and bringing it as decision support information to all kinds of principals who need to address questions about access in the cloud. Who are you? What are you allowed to do? How can I know for sure that what you say you're going to do is indeed what you're going to do? And how can I make sure that I can ultimately bill you? And finally, make sure that I can grab in a database any event that happened in that cloud during your sessions, the whole data capturing. Those four elements being, let's say, authentication, authorization, transaction verification, and data logging are a key element to make the cloud secure. So Elephant Talk is in the business of managing the mobile cloud and securing that at the same time on behalf of our principals. Those businesses have a recurring revenue model, so pretty much attractive, high margins, building revenues on top of each other. So each new contract that comes in basically sees our revenues growing, and as long as we create proper services for our customers, that trend upwards will continue for a long time to come. Those businesses on an inflection point, we really see the market taking up the services. We really get to the point where we see rapid growth, and based upon this recurring revenue model, we believe we can keep that rapid growth up for quite some time to come. That's also reflected in the revenues, in the relevant revenues that we do in mobile and security, moving from almost 6 million in 2011 to almost double the 12 million in 2012, and 17 million in the last 12 months reported up to Q3 this year. And with the current trend, we believe there is a good chance that indeed the revenues will have doubled in 2013 as well. And this is, of course, the relevant margins and relevant revenues for us. We used to be a landline outsourcing company, having revenues of 50, 60 million in the past. However, those revenues hardly carried any margin. And a couple of years ago, we took the on-purpose decision to really focus fully on mobile and security services. And this is what's being reflected in these numbers. So they may be lower than our original revenues. However, the quality of these revenues are completely different, as we now command margins close to 80%. And that you see a little bit below. They moved from 11% in 2011 up to almost 60% for the last 12 months. In the last quarter that we reported, it was already close to 80%. And of course, that trend will at some moment level off because it cannot get higher than 90, 100%, but we really feel comfortable that it can indeed stay in the range of 80+%. We invested over $100 million, and maybe it's a good moment to address the fact that if you look at our numbers over the last 5, 6, 7 years, you usually see a cash loss in the range of $10 to $15 million. That is based upon US GAAP, forced by the fact that all the investments we did in building out this mobile platform had mostly as an expense. We took the on-purpose decision not to rely on third-party vendors to avoid the same trap as where most of the mobile operators had fallen into. We wanted to be owner and the controller of that software. So we took some 130, 140 very smart people on board who could help us to write the code. However, based upon US GAAP, we have to flush that expense mostly through the P&L right away, which is bad because our P&L looked worse, our balance sheet looked worse, but of course as a company we are much richer now because we have taken that expense and we now do own that source code. And that source code is important for 2 reasons. Of course it gives us the flexibility to always be able to beat any price in the market because we have hardly third-party costs because we do own that software. But more importantly, because you own the software, you own the source code, you're able to deeply embed these source codes together so it appears as a single platform through a single web interface for the user. And that takes away the complexity, and that's really what's driving our business. Instead of selling complexity, what the traditional vendors have been doing, we sell a solution that is easy to use at a much lower cost, creating much more flexibility. And that's basically what's driving the business. And that's also the reason why, for example, Vodafone recently signed another 5-year contract with actually increased rates. So we believe that that's a good reflection of the reference we have been able to build up with Vodafone and a reflection of their happiness with the platform and how we have performed. Insiders have invested most of the money, including myself, and we believe and we feel very comfortable that this investment will bear fruit in the next couple of years. This is a reflection of the growing revenue base as discussed a little earlier, and at the bottom graph you see the completely turning around of the business from the landline legacy platform business to the mobile and security business that in the most recent quarter was almost 100% of our revenue base. So lower revenues, but of a much higher quality as reflected upon earlier. This is a reflection on how the business grew over the last couple of years. In the left top corner you see that our gross margins grew from about 300,000 about 2 years ago to 4.1 million in the most recently reported quarter, a 13-14-fold increase. And hopefully we can continue that speed of development in the next couple of years. The reflection of the gross profit margin going up from about 4% 2 years ago to close to 80% now. Again, the reflection of the completely change in the mix of revenue that we on purposely are focused now completely on security and mobile services. Increased gross profit margins and ultimately, as I will show a little later, also causing the company to get almost cash flow break even. We are kind of really at this inflection point of being able to finally command a profit per quarter. As a company, we are listed on the New York Stock Exchange market. The stock price is currently somewhere between 150 and 160. We have some 140 million shares outstanding, having a market cap of somewhat over $200 million. Average volume is close to 1 million shares per day, and on the right hand side you see some of the recent events that I will touch upon a little later as well. Let's now have a more in detail look at what Elephant Talk is really doing. Elephant Talk, as I said, we have developed all the software for billing, customer care, rating, switching, intelligent network, provisioning, bundling, promotions, anything you can imagine that a mobile operator needs. And some journalists have called us for that reason the SAP system for the mobile industry. We basically provide a complete software kit around which the mobile operator can much more efficiently organize itself and thereby not only taking advantage of a much lower cost of the services we bring, but also creating much more flexibility to address today's needs. And we have basically been able with outside developments to make this all work. And one is the whole virtualization of software capabilities. You can run many modules now simultaneously on the same platform. But at the same time, the platform capabilities have dramatically increased, the processing and storage power. And these two developments assure us that we have all this software that we can really run simultaneously instead of in sequence over 40, 50 different platforms, where one platform needed first the output of an earlier platform to be able to process their own stuff. And by doing everything at the same time on a single platform, we can provide, as the only platform in this business, a real-time snapshot of what's really happening with all these devices, all these customers, all these applications in the cloud. And in this time of always-on, real-time connectivity, Twitter, Facebook, things of the past are simply not good enough. You need to know what's happening now at this very moment, and with your current business rules, being able to address those needs of each individual customer, of each individual segment. That's really what we bring to the market, and thereby we have been able to develop all this software in-house. And one of the most important aspects is what we show here a little later, the geo-redundancy, to be able to really make sure that it's fully carrier grade with 99.999 whatever nines behind it uptime. So to really make sure that a mobile operator can fully rely on having non-stop 24/7 services to their customers. And that's at a fraction of the cost. And I think that's ultimately also the reason why key customers like Vodafone, like Zain, like Usacell, like T-Mobile have chosen for our platform to help them to deal better with the challenges of mobile operators in the current environment. This is kind of an overview. On the left-hand side, you see the different radio networks. Our platform is fully agnostic. For example, the platform in Mexico does at the same time GSM, CDMA, 4G, and LTE. So irrespective of the protocol the individual handset and spectrum and antennas are using, we basically can address that at the same time and thereby provide this completely flexible structure on a single platform. On the right-hand side, you see the downstream activities, marketing, sales, customer care, all the distribution activities. We are not involved in that. However, we provide the data from our platform to help the mobile operator to better address those needs. And in the middle, you see all these modules that used to be on separate platforms running in sequence that now can all run simultaneously on one single platform, the Elephant Talk mobile platform. And all these activities, all these modules, all these capabilities are driven by the needs of mobile operators. And they will of course expand over time, and that's why this whole development of $10, $15 million a year will stay as a cost in the company. However, if we talk about getting to cash flow positive, we have already covered for that full expense and pay for that completely. So this is the picture today, and it will evolve in a picture tomorrow depending on the needs of mobile operators, whereby we will have a relentless drive to make sure that every new module will completely fit into the single platform, single web interface strategy and model that we want to bring to our customers. Then let's look at Velsoft, our security subsidiary. There are two main reasons why we believe this is a perfectly fit for the company. First of all, now that mobile operators are migrating away from traditional GSM and CDMA networks towards 4G and LTE networks, they basically become all data providers. And we was becoming all data providers and outfacing the traditional telecoms equipment, they cannot anymore rely on the traditional security brought by these traditional telecoms equipments. Because as you can imagine, landline operators were kind of the oldest cloud services providers in the world, because the one who was consuming a service was not in the same location as where the service was provided. An operator 20, 30, 40 miles away had to guess that it was indeed you and that you were authorized to make that phone call. And operators, landline mobile operators, have gone through great lengths over the years to go through the learning curve to address that need, to make sure that access to their networks was secure. But that was all based on traditional equipment. Now that traditional equipment will evaporate and will not be used any longer, they basically get into the same position as anyone else providing a service in the cloud. Authentication, authorization, verification, and logging. The challenges that everyone has providing a service in the cloud. Who are you? What are you allowed to do? How can I make sure you indeed do that? And how can I bill you? Or how can I track and trace whatever you've done for compliance reasons? That's what is all built in the Velsoft module. We are currently building in those capabilities in the mobile platform so that mobile operators will have that capability, that security that they have been used to in the past, will also have them for them in the future, however based on 4G networks. So that's a big reason why for us Velsoft is a key internal supplier. On the other hand, as I said before, Velsoft covers the needs of anyone else offering cloud services. So also in their own segments, going after mobile banking, government access, for example, government benefits, geofencing for gaming, access to electronic medical records, access to content on the internet. All these processes need to be guarded. And Velden is able to deliver that suite of services to make sure that the cloud can be used securely. So they also go out and find partners to address specific market needs. And one of those partners has been announced in last year, FICO, who is the largest risk engine provider in the world, was about a 70% market share, meaning that 70% of the electronic transactions that do pass a risk engine do pass a Falcon risk engine of FICO. FICO is the leader in applying historical data layers to determine whether a transaction could be an ATM transaction, a point of sale transaction, any remote transaction in the cloud is valid or is not valid. However, using just historical data is simply not good anymore nowadays. You need to have this contextual, real-time data layer. And that's exactly what Velden can provide. As explained before, they use huge amounts of data from connected networks, bring them in real time to their processing platform, mix it with their secret sauce, their algorithms, their software, and bring it back as decision support information. And that's exactly the layer that we can add on top of the historical data layer of FICO, and thereby basically creating a whole new segment of the market that is up to the task nowadays. And we believe that these kind of partnerships will help us address the needs of specific segments in the market to make sure that we don't need to have all the effort ourselves, because as a small company it's pretty tough to reach the 5,000 plus banks where FICO is already part of the operation, and we can just actually write the course with them to make sure we can add those data layers to the historical data layer of FICO, and thereby take an interesting piece of the revenue and addressing the needs of these banks. And we hope to forge these kind of relationships in more of the segments that I mentioned earlier. And one of the key elements of Velden is that it's non-infringing, using existing data points, and very important, fulfills all the requirements of the privacy seals of the European community. So we, I believe, are the only company in the world where every security application is fully covered by a privacy seal of the European community. And as you may know, those are the most stringent rules in the world. So if you fulfill those rules in Europe, you virtually fulfill them everywhere in the world. And that has also been confirmed for countries like the USA, Mexico, Australia, Singapore, and so on. And we feel very comfortable that with this unique selling point of having these privacy seals, we can help our customers without having to worry about privacy or data protection issues. Last but not least, voice biometrics. We believe if you are working in the cloud, connected environment, we have been using the cloud for voice already for decades. And why not using voice biometrics as a unique biometric that is a lively tool where you can basically hardly see any copies. And if you see a copy, you know almost for sure it is indeed a copy, and a red flag raises because it's a lively thing. And that's much better than a fixed biometric like an iris or a fingerprint, because once that is stolen, you cannot use that biometric for the rest of your life. Whereas a voice biometric is a lively thing, and you can always use it, because if it's too good a copy, you know it is a copy. There always should be slight things, and Velden has the ownership of the intellectual property in this domain, and in one of the most recent NIST tests in the United States, it came out on top of a commercial voice biometric engine, just to show you how the quality of this software, of this intellectual property is. And we have good hope that this will become a generic application within the cloud to make sure that indeed you are who you say you are. 5-factor authentication, pretty unique, build around this whole concept of using existing data points in connected web networks, a layered approach so that you can always make sure that you apply a reasonable level of security given the size and the risk of each particular transaction in real time. This is how we will address the markets. As I explained, FICO is on top with reaching out to all the banks. Spindle is like a company like Square, where we can address the more of the merchant acquirer needs, where also a lot of fraud can be detected. And at the bottom you see the peer-to-peer payments, trillions of transactions, however very small with low risk, but they will still need some layers of security that we can apply. Then just an overview of where we are. We recently signed this contract with Vodafone. Our strategic focus is on the Americas, Europe and the Middle East, and Africa. A very strong pipeline of RFQs. We are in over half of them on the short list. usually with competitors like Ericsson or Huawei, sometimes Nokia, Siemens or Alcatel-Lucent, but we feel very comfortable by having this single platform approach. We will stand out in most of these RFQs over the years to come. World-class mobile cloud platform and security at the same time, and reflected by key customers like Vodafone, Zain, Usacell, and more to come. The same on Veldensoft's side, world-class platform, indeed fully integrated into a single platform, irrespective which channel in the cloud you're using, and currently building up references with key customers in the UK, mostly with FICO, to really make sure that this works all perfect in the marketplace. Then just addressing our business models briefly, they're pretty much aligned. We help customers to step away from CapEx and turn these costs into OpEx, from fixed to variable cost. More and more customers don't even know which technologies will be relevant in the next 3, 5, 7 years, and they rather rely on a supplier who is on top of matters, who is actually developing this stuff themselves to make sure that our customers will have all the up-to-date systems that are available in the market. And also a very key element, from complicated point solutions with having 20, 30, 40 different vendors that you have to manage as a customer, going to a single vendor, Elephant Talk, that can provide you with a single platform to address all the needs in securing and managing the cloud. The 3 business models we are using, first of all, the model of the platform business like we are doing for Usacell, for Vodafone and Zain. It's a managed service. We install the platform. It's our risk. It's our software on top. And we charge the customer, let's say 50 cents to $1 per customer per month. Depends a little bit on the sliding scale and the volume of customers. And margins are 100% or 90% plus, but basically, as we have developed all the software in-house, have hardly any third-party cost. This is really the margin that we are producing. Then we see also a capability in the future to bundle this with airtime. Sometimes there's reason for the mobile operator or a virtual operator to have the airtime going through our P&L. Of course, the revenue per customer will be higher, but you have to share that revenue to a large extent with the mobile operator that is hosting the traffic. So you will only see margins in the range of 15, 20, 25%. Then on the bottom you see the Veldensoft business models, both transaction and verification driven. Depending on whether it's a closed user group or an open group, there could be charges from $0.01 to maybe $20 per transaction, or $30 to $50 per subscriber per month to have unlimited access to the capabilities of the platform. Margins are expected to be around 60%, as we intend to share a big chunk of the revenues with the mobile operator and the other connectivity of providers that supply us the data points in the connected networks to make sure these services can be provided. As a result of all what I discussed with you, this is how we have been able to reduce the burn over the last couple of years, because of course that has been a main driver for management. This is after the 10 to 15 million in R&D costs that we take on every year, and we've been able to reduce the burn from close to $4 million in Q4 2011 to less than $100,000 in the most recent quarter, Q3 2013. And of course, although I cannot tell you exactly how this will develop, there is no reason to believe that this trend will not continue for quite some time to come. As a summary, we signed this contract with Usacell in Mexico. The platform has initial capacity for 10 million customers, as they currently have some 7, 8 million customers. However, driven on their business model, they expect to grow to somewhere between 10 and 20 million. So our platform is able to expand to 20 million customers, and it's also being tested for that. Initial migration should be announced really soon. We believe that we are on the verge of these developments, and we hope to be able to indeed announce that in the very, very near future. We entered into the US market very carefully, and we will hopefully also be able to share some of our successes there in the near future. The platform in Spain, as I said, we just got a new 5-year contract. We are currently managing somewhat over 1.3 million customers purely in the virtual operating segment on behalf of Vodafone, and we believe that with the current contract we are well positioned to double that business over the next few years. Then in Saudi Arabia, the combination of Axiom, who got a virtual license from the regulator in Saudi Arabia, together with their hosting carrier Zain, we have contracts with both, and we feel comfortable that that will also be a very nice addition to our platform business over the months and years to come. Then on the right hand side, Veldensoft, several UK banks together with FICO. We are currently really deploying services. Maybe the revenues are still small, but we are building up references, and hopefully, ultimately, it will be clear that this will be the solution for all these banks to go after in combination with FICO. We have SIM-swap live applications in the UK, done now I think some 12, 30 million transactions. We have been getting many awards for the usefulness of our application and the uniqueness. We signed a couple of large contracts that are being provisioned now as we speak, and ultimately we also believe that the zero latency correlation patent, whereby a smartphone can basically help us to identify proper transactions and other transactions, for example in the virtual currency environment, will all see proper usage of the whole ValidSoft suite of applications. That's my presentation for this morning. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask them. Please.
As one example, what's the value of that 5-year Vodafone contract?
Well, if you look at what we have been reporting, that would be in the range of, I would say, somewhere between $50 and $100 million.
It looks like an opportunity to have some spectrum options in the United States coming up in the next year or so. I was just wondering if you have any insights on what that spectrum might be used for and how that might, what your thoughts are.
Well, I'm not sure how that spectrum will be used for, but it will for sure be used to create connected environments. Connected environments need both to be managed as well as secured. So for us, the more spectrum is in use, the more devices are in use, the better it is for us at the end of the road. I think we have to complete the session at this time. Thanks all for coming over, and if there is any follow-up, please address it to me. Thank you.